Welcome to another Cup of Joe. I'm your host, Joe Chumalo, CEO of PG Partner. Delighted to have my guest today, Kelly Gicale. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you so much for having me, Joe. It's a delight to be here. I appreciate you
My
inviting
pleasure.
me.
Likewise, I think a neat way that we connected. Your dad is a donor of one of my clients that I do contract work for. Super nice guy. We talked for a while, a couple times, and he said, "Yeah, my daughter does something like you do." So very cool.
Yeah, no, it is. There aren't, it's not a huge field of people. We're in a very select, I think elite but fun, nice group. And so any opportunity to connect with someone, especially who was able to have a good conversation with my dad, who is a retired CPA. Not their accountants aren't really known for their conversation skills, so I knew it would be a good connection.
And good lead into what we're going to talk about in this Cup of Joe is we don't need to be plan giving experts to have deep, meaningful conversations with donors that can lead to plan gifts.
Absolutely. One of the things that I really love to work with my clients on, especially when people are starting their plan giving programs or expanding and trying to do trainings for other staff who might not be, familiar with plan giving at all, is really just demystifying it, if you will. Because as you know, and as I know from my experience as a frontline fundraiser and training, even my colleagues when I was working for Major Cancer Center here in Tampa, it's really about relationship building. Just like all great individual fundraising, it's about building that relationship, getting to know the person, getting to know what motivates them, what they care about, why they are connected to your mission, and then figuring out how to connect them to your organization in a way that's meaningful to them. It's just with planned giving, we also have those extra kind of bonuses, if you will, the value add that offers even greater benefits to the donors through tax savings and a kind of more long-term permanent impact on the mission than, for example, a major gift might be able to do. So I always try to start with encouraging anyone, regardless of their experience level, to just get comfortable with the idea that most planned gifts, legacy gifts, if you will, I know in our speak we talk about planned gifts as legacy gifts, testamentary gifts, and then also tax effective asset based giving now. But I'll use kind of planned giving to cover, legacy giving technically. Um, 90+% of those are those bread and butter basic bequests, gift in your will, like Dr. Russell James has taught us to speak about it, gift in your will or trust, and also beneficiary designations. So knowing that, very simple, easy to set up, one or two sentences in a will or trust, completing a change of beneficiary form, anyone can do that. And once it gets to the next level, hopefully, our colleagues who are in major gift fundraising will, you know, meet those people who have a charitable remainder trust or, have really interesting maybe assets that they want to give, real estate, things like that. Then the kind of conversation can always lead into, that's a really interesting idea. Do you mind if I speak with either their plan giving partner internally, or ideally if they have, legal advice or assistance outside, which can either be from the board or we know a number of organizations, companies, Joe and I, you and I have talked about these that have sprung up in the last, 10 years or so that have really changed the game for smaller organizations to allow them to accept interesting plan gifts without having to, manage or, liquidate them internally. Then you bring in the experts. But that first conversation, that getting to know that person, and then identifying them as a good plan gift prospect, it's something that I really want anyone who's donor facing to feel comfortable with because we know almost anyone can make a planned gift, right? Or legacy gift, because most of our wealth is illiquid. And so if we are not arming our, colleagues, anyone who's speaking with donors with at least that basic comfort level and ability to kind of look for those sort of green flags, we call them, then we're selling ourselves short. We're leaving gifts off the table if we're only looking to our plan giving professionals to be looking out for that and having those conversations.
I think it's about being insatiably curious and always having that in the back of my mind. I use the analogy of a toolkit that we should think about. We have a toolkit. In our toolkit are annual fund gifts, major gifts, leadership gifts, and all these non-cash gift options that we're talking about. And then I take that analogy a little further and say I leave that toolkit in the truck until the donor and we have had a deep enough conversation with the donor to figure out, and if they're open to chatting, right, about other ways to
No,
give.
100%. I think sometimes we in specifically in the plan giving profession industry have a tendency sometimes to get a little too wrapped up in the how of the gift, which is exactly what you're talking about, that tool chest that you're going to, the toolkit. So I also, even though that tends to be where we have the most fun for the plan giving nerds like us, of like, oh my gosh, this is such a cool gift, this is such a great opportunity, the stars are aligning for something interesting here. It makes sense that at our conferences and things like that, we want to talk about that and get excited about it. But at the end of the day, legacy plan gift donors are just like any other donor, where the why is really the most important. That is what is going to motivate someone to include a gift or include your organization in their estate plans. Thinking about the impact that they are going to make. We know that that is the most effective way of approaching this kind of fundraising. And so starting with why is always a best, practice that I recommend. And then you get into the how. And then you get into, because once you have someone kind of locked in and excited about what their gift will do in the future, the kind of long-term, more enduring impact they can make, and they're using words like this is our mission, this is what we're going to be doing in the future, then those conversations about the how are going to be even more rewarding all around. And the gift is going to be even greater, ideally transformational for the organization, than if you just led with, any of the technical aspects of plan giving.
Do you know the name Dan Shepard?
I do. Yeah, yeah.
He had a big influence on me early on, and I modified it a bit, but I always give him credit anytime I use it. The I guess 5 or 6 questions. Why, right? Simon Sinek, start with why. And if you don't know that Simon Sinek, please go to YouTube and watch. There's a 5-minute version of Simon Sinek, start with why. Why you've been so good to us. Why I use that all day long on my calls. Why so good? Why so loyal? Why us? 1.5 million charities. Why are you so good to us, right? Where do you want to have an impact? Research, alumni, whatever. When do you want to have an impact? Now, through your estate plans, or both, right? Always thinking both. So why, where, when, what? What are your goals? What are your concerns? Oh, you have an adult child with special needs that need to be cared for forever, or you're trying to retire, whatever it is, right? And then he says most people skip that next question, the how question, and go right to the ask. Right. So to your point, and just slow it down, and it's great then to be able to have ideally get answers to all that eventually. May not be on the first visit, first conversation. And sometimes which happens, if we're dealing with elderly folks, taking the lunch or something, and it's going on the conversation is going on for like an hour and a half, and it's great. We love it. They love it. We love it. At some point, we need to get down to little business, right? So I always remember that. Do I know where, what, when, why? Where, when, what, why? Yeah, right. So,
yeah, that's the 101 of journalism, and it applies to this as well, as making sure that you're building the relationship, but you're doing so in a way that's thoughtful, and the best use of your time and resources and the donors, because you want to be of service to them as well and make sure that you are presenting the right ask for them. And you can't do that if you haven't tried to gather as much of that information as possible. I totally agree.
Sorry. So to summarize, ask lots of questions, be insatiably curious. What's another one? I'll let you do the next one.
I would say playing gaming is for everyone. You know, like I mean, that goes across the board. One of the things I love, and I'm completely openly biased about it. I love about playing giving is that unlike major gifts where you have to have a certain level of wealth and liquid, disposable income, anyone can make a planned gift. But also, this applies to fundraisers as well. Anyone can be a planned giving fundraiser. You don't need to have a JD after your name. You don't need to have these certifications. You just need to be exactly what you're saying. You need to be insatiably curious and willing to look at the planned gift as a possible option, either a plan B if the major gift isn't going to work out, or as you mentioned, or kind of referred to, as a blended gift opportunity. Because if you don't, then there's certainly going to be dollars left on the table.
Yeah. And it can be, the last point I want to make is it can be super casual, the ask. So
Yeah.
most of my work has morphed into contract work instead of teaching people to fish, fishing for them. And I pretty much just make phone calls all day for my clients. And I will bring it up right away. People that I'm cold calling, longtime donors, they're not expecting my call. And if the conversation, like with your dad as an example, is going great, I'm bringing it up on the first call. Are we in your will by any chance? I know this is one of my favorite sayings. Question out of left field. Are we in your will by any chance? The way you're talking, oftentimes when I speak with donors like you, they tell me they provided for ABC charity in their estate plans. So it can be that casual. Just
Yeah. Because
we're in an event. Yeah.
One thing that I do think sometimes can be a deterrent for people who don't have as much experience in plan giving fundraising is thinking that we're going to be talking about death, which is the opposite of good plan giving fundraising best practice. And so exactly what you're saying, you make it casual, you make it approachable, relatable, you make it not a big deal, and you would be shocked at how willing, depending on the person, it's not across the board, but how open people will be about their estate plans. And so if you don't ask, you won't know. That's really what it comes down to.
And the other, just I'll leave one more tip. I like to make a list. And I suggest if you're not doing this, start with 5 names, 5 people that you know really well. Write it down on a piece of paper and take the paper with you if you're on the road or something. I mean, I was in the airport. My wife and I did a long weekend mini vacation. And I'm doing this volunteer work for my church, helping them build a plan giving program. And I took my list. I took a list of 10 members. And while we're waiting in the airport, which we always do, I made 10 calls. And right away, I got 4 people on the phone. 2 said not interested. 2 said I've already done something, self-identified. But it was in the airport, a loud airport, and I've done that over the years. Nobody has ever complained about, oh my God, why are you calling me? Where are you? Why are you calling me? But just take a list with you and write it down. Take a list, and when you're out somewhere, just make a couple phone calls.
I think that's the best use of airport wait time I've ever heard of, honestly. I'm impressed.
And it's fun. There's just something about being in that environment. Like, you're away from your office, and especially if you're going like on a little vacation or something, you just feel more calm and relaxed. And yeah. So
yeah, a great mood. Yeah.
Well,
I love that.
Thank you so much. How can people get in touch with you?
Well, through my website, it's www.kellygicale.com. I have an contact me box on there, or you can email me kelly@kellygicale.com. Thank you so much, Joe.
Thank you. Till next time. Take care.
Cheers.
I salute. You're Italian. I salute.
Salute. Yeah.